spent in a miserable way.
U.S. News: a look at how transportation can transform a city. The Washington Post. Seattle. Years after the highway teardown movement helped reshape places like Boston and Seoul, this Pacific Northwest city is in the midst of a similar transformation. On Monday, the nation's first double-decker traffic tunnel will open here, reaching more than 200 feet at its lowest point below the city's congested streets. The 2-mile-deep ore tunnel is replacing the Alaskan Way Viaduct, an unsightly, earthquake-damaged elevated highway that runs along the city's picturesque waterfront. Leaders and planners had long derided the hulking concrete eyesore that separates popular waterfront attractions such as the Seattle Aquarium and Washington State Ferries from iconic landmarks, including Pike Place Market and the Seattle Art Museum. Now the viaduct's celebrated replacement, 18 years after the Nisqually earthquake nearly brought it down, is expected not only to reorient the city's expanding skyline but finally merge its downtown with its tourist-heavy waterfront. 8 acres of new public parks, with a landscaped promenade and space for cycling and recreation, will emerge along 26 blocks from what is now the highway's shadows. When we started studying options for the viaduct replacement, we looked at the Embarcadero in San Francisco and understood what a great benefit opening up the waterfront to the public and having better access was going to be, said Paula J. Hammond, Senior Vice President at WSP USA, a multinational engineering and design firm. Hammond spent 35 years with the Washington State Department of Transportation and was Transportation Secretary during the early years of planning for the viaduct replacement. I think in the end, the new Highway 99 tunnel stretches from the industrial tangle south of downtown, near one of the West Coast's biggest seaports and 2 major stadiums, north to where the late Microsoft co-founder and philanthropist Paul Allen over the past decade transformed a sleepy neighborhood into a vibrant commercial and residential corridor, now anchored by Amazon. It is the longest road. The $3.3 billion viaduct replacement is among a number of big-ticket transportation projects that will shift the way people and freight move around the region. Among them is the project is similar to how Maryland's light rail Purple Line and Phase 2 of the Metro Silver Line extension into Loudoun County will fill gaps in the Washington region's transportation network. Washington State permanently closed the viaduct January the 11th, sending 90,000 vehicles a day scrambling for alternative routes. Demolition will be built during the freeway construction frenzy of the 1950s as one of 2 north-south corridors through Seattle. The viaduct is part of State Route 99, a patchwork of surface streets, freeway segments and the 3,000-foot Battery Street Tunnel. Homeless residents in tents and sleeping bags find shelter in its gritty underbelly, between the 6-story concrete columns and parking lots. Meron Sefer, a business consultant who used to take the viaduct to his downtown offices multiple days a week, said he will miss the view it afforded from the top view, the downtown skyline to the east and the expanse of Puget Sound to the west and the Olympic Mountains beyond. I think for Seattle to be a truly great city, the viaduct had to come down, said Sefer, who moved to Seattle in 2001, the year the Nisqually earthquake hit. This city's relation, among those like him who used to drive nervously across the viaduct's weathered frame, residents living within earshot of its unrelenting din and confused visitors negotiating its Gotham City-like underside, there are few tears being shed over the viaduct's demise. Yet deciding how to replace the downtown highway embroiled this city in more than a decade of political drama, myriad citizen forums and stakeholder groups, 3 advisory ballot measures and an embarrassing 2-year stall by a storage tunnel drilling machine called Bertha. Throughout the process, this is not just about replacing a road, Gregoire said at a January 2009 news conference. This is about build. Her motivation was safety, Gregoire said recently. I knew it was just initially, Gregoire and state transportation planners were against the deep ore tunnel option as irresponsible and too expensive. But as the political, Gregoire recalls sitting down for dinner with former British Columbia Premier Gordon Campbell, who, looking out toward Elliott Bay, spotted the viaduct and inquired, "What is that monstrosity?" "In replacing it," she said, "we'll create an iconic waterfront, and everyone will look back and wonder what was wrong with us. Why did we do this?" Former Seattle Mayor Michael McGinn, who won office in 2009 campaigning against the tunnel, continues to believe the state made the wrong choice. McGinn was among a group of environmentalists who favored what he said was the more climate-conscious option of expanding transit and improving surrounding streets from nearby Interstate 5 to handle spillover traffic. McGinn points to San Francisco's Embarcadero Freeway and the New York's West Side Highway as successful examples of deteriorating highways that were demolished and not replaced and not missed. "This is the new space of climate change denialism, and it runs deep in both political parties," McGinn said. "Increasingly, states and the federal government will be forced to make these kinds of transportation decisions," the former mayor said. "Do we continue? So I am not sure what we are celebrating here," McGinn said. The viaduct replacement has frequently invited comparisons to Boston's infamous Big Dig, the rerouting of that city's elevated downtown highway into an underground tunnel that was plagued by design flaws, enormous cross overruns and delays. The comparisons dogged Washington transportation officials, who early on had visited Boston and other cities to learn what went well and what did not. The state chose a design-build contract for the viaduct project, meaning the contractor, Seattle Tunnel Partners, was given creative freedom but would share in the risk of the project, which is 3 years behind schedule, including the 2 years Bertha was idle. The state told us, beginning mid-year, the tunnel will have variable rate tolls, meaning they will fluctuate depending on the time of day, ranging from $1 to $2.25. Designed with fire suppression and air monitoring and ventilation to measure and reduce the levels of vehicle emissions, the Highway 99 tunnel was built to withstand a 9.0 magnitude earthquake which occur every 2,500 years, on average. At 24 hours from the window of his antique store, which he has run for the past 40 years, Ken Eubank can see beyond the columns of the viaduct to a waterfront park, the Seattle Great Wheel, and out toward Elliott Bay and Puget Sound. His Seattle Antiques Market, wedged between a storage business and Seattle's only dedicated blues club, which closed on New Year's Day, is among the warehouses and small businesses operating in the shadow of the viaduct. And while, like most, he is not sorry to see the viaduct go, its removal leaves him and other nearby business owners with something of a quandary. Eubank said he will, "My business plan is really good," Eubank jokes. "My exit plan."
Raindrop, drip, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that.